Hey friends, welcome to the show. Today I'm speaking with Bonnie Lewis. She wrote this book, The Spark of My Womb, under the name Coil. And I read this book after a friend recommended it to me, and I could not put it down once I started it. And it left me with such a deep feeling of being heard and being seen, and also a lot of curiosity because I love the subject matter. Um, and it also inspired me to go create and make some stuff my own. And so I knew I wanted to reach out to Bonnie, see if she would talk with me about the process and about the contents of the book. And I just want to read some of the back page here to set you up to understand a little bit about what the story is, and we get into some of the details. But it starts with this question: have you ever wanted to burn the whole thing down? To step into the fire, not to be destroyed, but to be reborn? When Amy retreats to Big Bear to escape her life, she brings nothing but grief, a backpack, and well laid plans. She's fully prepared, or so she thinks, for a guided psilocybin retreat with Dr. Lauren, a reclusive healer who promises transformation through the medicine of the earth. On her way there, she has a chance encounter with Jane, a woman whose unraveling begins with the tiniest spark of life. Meanwhile, London is visiting a mental health clinic, desperate to quiet the chaos inside. There she meets Peggy, a compassionate yet enigmatic guide with her own hidden cracks beneath the surface. As these women's paths cross, blur, and converge, a single candle burns quietly in the background until the flame grows into something bigger, wilder, uncontrollable. Set against a backdrop of forests, daisies, and the invisible threads that bind us, The Spark of My Womb is a mystical thriller and mind bending tale of sisterhood, healing, and self reclamation. With a twist you won't see coming, this story dares to ask, what if the only way out is in? And with that, I give you my conversation with Bonnie Lewis. Yeah, let's jump in.
Okay.
Because this book, The Spark of My Womb, man, what an incredible thing you've created here.
Oh,
It
that's so
it
nice.
took me on such a trip.
Yeah.
So first off, I
That
just want to
was
say thank you because yeah, it's like it's like it is a ride is one of
yeah,
the best ways for me to describe it.
right. So I'm so glad you said that. Thank you so much for reading it and having me on. This is so much fun. And I love that you said that when you're like, "Oh my gosh, this was a ride." Or I think you said this was a trip. And I was so happy because I really wanted it to feel that way. Since it's about a psychedelic trip, I'm like it needs to have that you feel like you're also sort of like, wait, what? Like taking one. And my good friend who's in the book, but she's also my friend, Peggy, she wrote, like, and I have it right here because I just thought it was so perfect. She wrote, "Get ready for a journey that's as fun, insightful, surprising, and maybe even as mind-blowing as a psychedelic trip itself." I was like, yes, good. Okay, mission accomplished. So
That's
I'm really glad
perfect.
you enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, as we're jumping into this interview, I want to, we're going to be talking about characters and some plot and process too. I'm curious about, and I
Mhm.
want to be sensitive to not, giving away too much because there are a lot
Yeah.
of like twists and turns in here. But maybe the good way to set it up is I will lightly just describe it as the story of a group of women that are all
Mhm.
interconnected in different ways. And
Yes.
one of the common thread is the healing, the grief, the trauma that they've been through, and how psychedelic experiences are kind of facilitated and a part of their journey. Is that a
Yeah.
fair summary of
That's a
maybe like to
great
really like
summary.
step away?
Mhm.
Great. Now
Yeah, it's a good
there's the thing that I was so moved by this book was such a poetry in the entire thing. So I'd love to
hmm.
just read a little section right from the
Yeah.
beginning. So it's not giving anything away, but um, for anyone who's listening to this and hasn't read it, um, it'll give you, I think, a little bit of a tone. And one of the things that just like pulled me in right away.
Awesome.
Um, so this is just from the end of the first chapter.
Okay, I'm gonna
And
follow along. What page are you
beautiful.
on?
I'm gonna start at that last paragraph, just beyond.
Oh, I'm on the wrong chapter. So hold
That's
on,
okay.
let me get there.
No worries. No
Okay,
worries.
go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Just beyond the luminous cloud of my light and heart, bending and swirling as it touches the cool night air, I see a hand touching her shoulder and a voice calls out her name. Yellow caution tape surrounds the women, blocking them from the rest of the world. This isn't new. Isolation has always been a part of their story. The hand on her shoulder tightens, and she reaches to take hold. Her other hand finds the other woman's fingers, hanging by her side. Woven together, they stand, my heat giving them the warmth they never received, but always longed for. My flames remind them they must never let go, and they can only survive this life with one another. Staring into her eyes, I search until I find the abyss called grief. I rage all around me, getting bigger, fuller, and brighter until I can see the bottom of the chasm and find love. I see babies and families, dreams and despairs, all encapsulated within the most messianic part of her body, her womb space. Woo! You wrote that.
I know. First, it's weird. It's so weird to read it back. Well, actually, your voice is so calming. That was like ASMR. It's so calming.
This is, I have to say that's kind of nervous. Well, I'm aware of the experience of, the voice that you are writing something, and then when you hear it back from you, that's a very trippy experience, So
Yeah,
there was some pressure of like, all right, here I'm just going to go how I'm hearing this, but
I love that. That's
everyone has a
what's so
different
great.
experience, of course. So
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting to read something like that back.
mm,
For me, when I write, it's a very like encapsulated experience for me. So I can, whatever happens in the room writing, um, I don't recall it after. So I know that sounds so odd, like, but I don't even remember really writing that. It's like it's more of like this download situation, and I write it, and then it sort of escapes me. I so hearing it back from people is such a gift because I've forgotten like, oh right, it says that, and I've had to reread it a few times to do interviews because I keep forgetting, oh, this is going on or that went on. But also I think the beauty of art in general, but books and things we create, is how much they go on to live a life elsewhere. Like, so me writing that was its own experience, but you reading it is its own experience. And I think it's so fascinating, especially when people read something back, or even in like my first book, people would say, oh, when you said this. And I would think, oh, I said that. And I'll go back and read it. And I didn't say that, but that's how they read it. Right. And I'm like, oh, that is so fascinating. So there is this whole idea of like, you write something and it's there and it's in your hands, and then suddenly as soon as it's in everybody else's hands, it takes on sort of a life of its own, which is what Fire, who is what that perspective of that chapter is from, also does. So it's this kind of really beautiful way that the energy kind of works together, that you can't, like, that I have no control over, right? That you can't like even guess what's going to happen or what people will receive from it. So I would love to know, I like would just love to hear when you read it or when you read it, how did it move in you? And then maybe we can kind of go back and forth on that.
well, I'm glad you brought it up because like we said, the book surrounds itself with these female characters, but then you introduce right at the start from what we're reading the element of fire as a
Mm-hmm.
character,
Yeah.
and to kick off the book that way, at first it was disorientating a bit. Like, okay,
Yeah.
like this is I'm pulled in, but I'm also not sure what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the character of Fire kept coming back, it created a sort of grounding and kind of cadence for the entire story
Mm-hmm.
that created this rest, this pause
Mm-hmm.
from the rest of the trip that I was taking on as I'm
Oh,
reading this
cool.
book. So it was like this really beautiful way to like bring me back. Because at times when you're reading the book, it feels a little swirly, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, where is this connected? Where is this going?
Yeah.
At times I felt a little just just mixed up in terms of like even how I felt about what these characters were going through. And then
Yeah.
fire would come in and it created this sort of like anchor point
Mm,
that created this steadiness that brought me
cool.
back.
Oh, that's really neat. That's really
I'm
great. I love
and I'm
that.
so I'm really curious like where this fire idea arose from. If it
Yeah.
was connected from the start, if it revealed itself at some point in the writing process.
Yeah, that's a great question. I knew I had wanted to write a book about my house burning down when I was in middle school. And I was able to write about it because at first, many people are like, oh, that must have been so traumatic. And that must have, and it was, and it did shape me and it did change me. But there are some events that have happened to us or things that have happened in the past, and I don't want to talk about those things. And so I'm also not going to write about those things. But that's not true of the fire. It integrated very well. And I also knew that it was a big thing that marked my life in such a way, right? So it was a big event and it did happen, but it doesn't feel traumatic for me. So I actually had started writing a book. It was kind of like a mystery thriller, just sort of surrounding this idea of fire, of this woman's house burning down. And then I didn't like it. I was like, I wrote, I think, the back blurb, and I just was like, this is not it. And so um, I started elsewhere. But I knew I would always wanted to surround it as fire. So one of the things that I often do when I write is practice getting very specific and very how do I want to say this, like intentional in stepping in, like seeing something from a different camera lens, I guess is the best way of putting it. So I have done meditations or just like creative practices is maybe a better way of, like, if different objects that we never give voice to and giving voice to them. So for a while I was really interested, I still am, I just haven't done anything with it, but really interested in the story of these two women, and they were in the past, and she actually wrote this Bible translation, this woman did, and it was this whole thing, like nobody accepted her translation. It was this whole thing, but I was very interested because she wrote it all by hand. So I spent a really long time trying to imagine myself. This is gonna sound. I've never said this out loud, and now that I am, I'm like, should I back it up? But I was trying to imagine myself as the ink, right? Like, so what would that feel
Mm.
like? And asking questions like, does the ink know what's being written? Does the ink know what's going on in society? What's the ink's viewpoint? Like, so trying to, like, an actual physical viewpoint of like coming out of the pen. So really trying to do that. So I really understood that in order to understand fire, I've got to meditate on it. I've got to figure out as best I can to understand it. So I spent a long time studying it. I literally would sit with a candle in front of me and just watch it for a very long time and look at the different colors. I studied it from many different faith traditions, studied from a scientific perspective. I think there's even a chapter in there when it talks about, from the fire's perspective, a pile of newspapers that combusts and like starts on fire. And that's an actual news story that happened, right? But then I put myself as in the perspective of the newspaper. So I'm always trying to do that because it's the most interesting for me. But I also don't think, I think I viewed my house burning down just one way for so long, and realizing, what's the other side of the gem here, right? Like, if I'm going to turn this gem and I'm going to look at it from all these different angles, what is it? So out of that meditative practice, I sort of found this voice of fire, and that it's connected to rage, and that it can be helpful, and that sometimes we do a prescribed burn, and right, that sometimes you do need to burn the whole thing down. And so I just started taking notes on, like, maybe this is it, and hoping it would come into the story. And then around that same time I started reading that book. I thought I had it here. I might have it somewhere, but it's oh, I can't think of it. Something Beautiful Creatures. And there's it's about an octopus, and there's like you hear it from the octopus perspective as well. And I
Mm.
realized, oh my gosh, I have all this research and I have all these notes. I'll try it. I'll try it. And so I tried it. And what was funny is I ended up self-publishing it, but when I was passing it out to like editors and people to be like, would you want to work on this with me? Or do you want to take it on for agents? I had quite a few agents that wrote back and said, I like the whole book, but I don't like the fire character.
Hmm.
And some of them saying, if you get rid of that, we could talk, and being like, no, that's my favorite part. And since people
Yeah.
have read it, it's always the favorite part. And so I'm really glad I didn't, you know, get rid of her just for the sake of, I don't know, a publishing deal or whatever it is.
So am I. So am I. So are you telling me that the book then started with this fire character and this idea, and
Mhm.
then everything else emerged from there? Or was there a desire to talk about psychedelics and stories of grief and trauma as well? Were these two ideas that like you tried to meld together, or did it just kind of naturally all?
No, so it kind of naturally all fell into place. I knew fire would be the thread woven through. Like I was clear on that. Um, I went to I didn't know really anything else of the story. And I was a bit frustrated by it. I was like, I should be able to know. And I've learned you just sometimes have to wait. And most of writing is not writing. And so I just was like, well, I guess I'll go live and then it'll come to me. Like that's really how I approach writing. So I went out of town that weekend to go visit my dad. And we were in Denver and we went to these little shops that we loved. Or before we went to the shops, he was watching basketball or something. An idea came to me. It was actually the farmer's market scene in the book. And I believe it's actually
Mm.
twice in there, right? Because we kind of replay it once. So I sat down and I just wrote it out. And I'm like, and I was at the time, this is strange because what is this scene and what does this have to do with fire, right? That's what I'm thinking.
Hmm.
And so later that day, we went to these shops, and my dad and I made a great time. And then we're just about to leave. And he's like, oh, look, there's a farmer's market. Let's go look. So we turned down this street, and literally, like the exact scene I had just written, there's this huge booth. It has like the kitschy fungi phrases. It looks the same. It was like I had written it into existence. So I was like, okay, so now we have fires and now we have mushrooms and we will see where this goes from here. And then it just kind of fell into place. So I never had a plan. Every day I would sit down and either write or not write and stare at the ceiling, but just see where it went. I decided on the different traumas and things just honestly based on my own life and was like, I can write about these things, but we'll see where they fall. And so I didn't have a plan for any of that. So every day I just sort of sat down and was like, what character is here today to write about, and we'll see where this goes. We'll see where it takes us. And sometimes at the end, I would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she did that. Like Dr. Lauren and the things she does to escape her pain. I didn't really see that coming. It's like it found me, and I was writing it, and then at the end, I had to really like lay down and do a meditation for a while. Like it was so gut wrenching, but I didn't see it coming. So it kept surprising me the whole time that I wrote, and it ended up coming together, which is a beautiful thing because sometimes it doesn't.
Yes, it did. I mean, there were many times in the book as I was reading that I was surprised when a particular moment would work in me a little bit. Like I'd actually feel a bit uncomfortable
Yeah.
with the tension that I'm reading about and feeling in the characters. Um,
Mm,
but one of the gifts I think of the book, and one of the reasons why I loved it, is the sort of balance that
mm,
every character has, and I think that that's an insightful and important comment on psychedelics in general,
yeah.
because I often think that like, my understanding is that they can be like anything else in the sense that, say someone has a heart attack, and one person decides to change their whole life,
Hmm.
and now they're changing the way they eat, and they're changing like how they move their body, and even maybe how they socialize with people. Like it can be
Mhm.
this catalyst for complete change. And then other people, it happens and it is a scary event,
Yeah.
but not a lot is changed, right? And I
Right.
think we've all have stories, or have friends, or have experienced it where, someone has mushrooms at like a concert and it's just like a fun, trippy experience, or it's
Yeah.
weird. And then at other times, it is this catalyst for deep, meaningful work and
Mhm.
healing and grief.
Mhm.
Um, and the fact that you bring that sort of balance, even in the characters that are the quote unquote healers, that you're
Mhm.
seeing
Yeah.
their whole selves, I think it's really powerful and needed to kind of break down the like we were talking about before, I started recording about, we've got this influencer culture, where you can
Yeah.
just project this
Mhm.
mask of perfection,
Yeah.
of that you've got it all together, and here's the way to get to healing and to live in
Yeah.
alignment and all these things. And the story, or the stories of all the characters, really, that just kind of like dissolves all of that, and you're able to just rest in the humanity of it all, which
Yeah.
is so nice.
Oh, I'm so glad. That's my hope. It's really vulnerable to just write like exactly what I feel. So much of it is really just what I feel, right? And then shifting it to be more sounding like a character. But I have found that vulnerability and saying like this is what it's like to be human is so healing because everybody feels uncomfortable ways many times and in their life. And I think what isolation of that does is so damaging to feel like we're the only ones. You know what I mean? And so I love that you said that because that would be my hope that it would feel like oh, that's uncomfortable, but it also touches you in a way that allows you to soften into your own self that maybe the culture at hand doesn't always let us do or invite us to, I guess.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that, you know, the most meaningful art that has impacted me essentially just gives me this feeling and this ability to just say, yeah, me too. I'm
Hmm.
hearing someone mirror, feelings and experiences that I have.
Yeah.
And it's really like all we're looking for, when we're in a vulnerable space or a tender space, or in a space of grieving or loss or trauma. We just
Hmm.
want that connection.
Yeah, I think so too. And, it was really interesting. I gave it to a bunch of my friends and family to read it first and then said, like, could you write a little blurb or whatever? And I would actually love to hear what you think about this. That most of the women that wrote me back, or my friends or family or women, were like, "Oh my gosh, I saw myself in that. Um, I agreed here, or I felt this, or whatever it is. All different. It was fascinating too, all the different people and personalities. But the men that read it were like, that was such a tough read, and I thought that was
Mm,
so fascinating because if you see yourself in something, I would think it might be super tough, right? That comes with its own set of challenges. But all three men that read it all have wives and children. So perhaps that's why it was tough for them. But one of them even said, like, I think you need a content warning. And I was like, oh, I hadn't
mm,
even thought of it. I
mm.
didn't even, because it's so natural for me. That's my story, so much of it.
Yeah.
Um, but I was so surprised. The women were intrigued and felt very seen and heard and like understood, and the men were the ones that had the harder time reading it. And I didn't expect that. I thought that was very fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I understand in part the idea of toughness, um,
Hmm.
but maybe that speaks to um, the content that a reader has engaged in terms of complexities and traumas and
Yeah,
those
yeah,
sorts of
yeah.
things, perhaps. But I'm acknowledging that there is, like I said, at times there were times where like it really like turned me around at times.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that like I saw myself better through each one of the characters, and
Oh,
I
good.
also felt that I understood a little bit more um, some of the important female people that are in my life,
Hmm.
as they've shared stories that are similar to the characters'
Mm, yeah.
stories, or just the self-talk,
Yeah.
it's like I understood what I've heard them articulate even
Yeah.
better, and I
Yeah.
could see how
Yeah.
that would be. There's almost like a difficulty in that, when
Yeah.
you're really touching in, right? Like we all have friends where we've been through an incredibly hard time, but then there's a shift when you
Mhm.
truly emphasize empathy, like empathy actually
Yeah.
kicks in and you actually feel it, like
Yeah.
it goes from like, cognitive, just like a mental thing, to like a heart, like body thing, and
Yeah.
that can be a challenging thing,
Mhm.
especially early on, if those sorts of antennas, have been dormant for a while, and you
Yeah,
come in
for sure.
online, like that is a tender thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But I was
interesting.
just so fascinated by that. And
Yeah.
that's part of it. Like you just don't know, I guess, what it's going to do or not do.
Well, if I can be, I mean, let me be really blunt, and that may go to show how ignorant most of us men are
Oh,
about how complex a female's experience is.
yeah. Well, and I don't
Um,
even think ignorant, I wouldn't say that about you. I wouldn't say that about my husband, my friends. I think we, as women, the experience is complex, but I feel like that we've been conditioned of like, that's the way it is for you. So you
yeah,
don't get to share it. Like
right,
everybody else is dealing with this, so you don't get to complain about it. And it was, and I
right,
think
yep.
there's so many things, especially in motherhood, that I also, that is a tough space, because I sometimes I'm like, well, I did sign up for it. Like, right, like I
Hmm.
want to, and there's a want and a love of it.
Yeah,
And then to everything, I mean, even the moon, there's a shadow side.
yeah.
And I just feel like for so long, we're not allowed to share that shadow side. And so I noticed we would share it at book clubs or play dates, and then, and that nobody else was talking about it elsewhere. And was part of that. I didn't say much. I didn't ever say this is hard, this is tough, because I didn't want to come across as a complainer or weak, that I can't handle it, that I should be
Yes,
able to do more.
yes, yes.
And I've
Yeah.
all so many times have said there's must be something wrong with me because I
Hmm.
can't
Right.
do all this. And we always joke, because I always am wondering how everybody else is living. So I'm like, how do you think they're doing this? Because I'm like, is everyone else doing it right? Like
Yes,
that was my
yes.
just feeling. And then so I actually wrote this whole thing, and then I didn't know what to do with it. Just was like, could I really say this? Or was this just for me? Was this just one big journal entry, basically?
Sure, sure,
And
sure, sure. Which
right,
would
I
be
just,
totally fine, might I say,
yeah,
like for any creative person out there. Like I've been through that, where it's like you write a thing and you're like, I don't know where this goes. Maybe this one was just for me. Maybe I'm not
yeah,
supposed
like
to
I
release
have a
this one.
few that are like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, they'll just sit there and that's fine. And that
Hmm.
was great. And I can move on. But then we watched, it's a movie of the book, Night Bitch.
Hmm.
It was on Netflix. Have you seen it?
No.
Oh gosh, it's very good. So we watched it, and my husband and I, and it was so moving, but it was also so healing to see it. And in the middle, and it's about her experience in motherhood. And in the middle,
Mm.
my husband paused it, and he like looked at me with tears in his eyes, and he was like, "Is this actually what it's like?" And I was realized then everything I thought I'd been saying, I had not been saying. Like, right? Like and
Mm.
that I needed to say it. So I went out, I think the next day I printed off this, and I was like, no, I'm going to publish it. And I gave it to my husband to read. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to publish this, because seeing that art healed something in me. And I would love to be able to, if it does, right, have the opportunity to heal something in someone else, then I think I'm going to take that, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me just say that like that was one of the many little gifts in this book. Um, this book gave me a sort of confidence and just openness to
Mhm.
even have a conversation like this about
Oh, that's
psychedelics,
cool.
and to not
Yeah.
be concerned about what people might say or think.
Yeah.
Even though they've been in the public space much more, in the last 5 to 10 years, it's still a
Yeah.
topic that I'm so fascinated by.
Hmm.
Um, but it's also a conversation that, can get a lot of side eyes, a lot of comments on it. Which
Absolutely.
actually, it connects with something that stuck out to me. You mentioned your family and friends handing the book to you, and in the acknowledgments, how did you say it here? I'm going to read it. Because I mostly write in solitude, the contents of these pages were a complete surprise to family and friends, but they were with me the whole time, even if they didn't know! Exclamation point. So I want to know more about that surprise.
Yes,
Uh,
and then let's talk more about the actual psychedelics too, because I think that's important.
sure, sure.
Um, I basically was like, I finished my book, and everybody was like, "What book?" Like I didn't even say I was writing it. I mean, I did to my husband and my kids because otherwise they'd have been like, "What are you doing in there for hours on end?" But I didn't tell any friends because I didn't know I was going to do with it, and it's a whole thing. So, and I also didn't want
Hmm.
any pressure on it. So I feel like when I tell
Right.
people stuff, then they're asking me, and if I haven't, and I don't know how to say to people when they say, "How'd your writing go?" And I'm like, it was amazing because I stared at the ceiling fan for 2 hours. But that's not computing to non-writers.
Yeah.
So it's just, so I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna. So then when I handed it to them, I got a few of my friends like writing me and being like, hey, I love this. And I'm making sure, are you okay? Like she truly, and I was like, oh, sorry. Yes, good. And right. So I
Oh,
realized like it was so much internal work I had done over the past, 10 years or whatever. And so it was, it's just absolutely fascinating to hear their, that surprise for them.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
my sister's not a reader. She read it. And my mom, bless her heart, she has started, and then she was just like, I don't think I can right now. My dad has passed recently, so it was just stories, and I'm like, there's no pressure. You don't even have to. I understand
Mm.
that it's personal, and you don't have to do it. But I think it was a surprise, and it felt really good to write. And maybe that's because I didn't know I was ever going to publish it. It felt really good to write. I mean, and that's my Instagram handle, Little Weird Writer, but
Hmm.
to write about like the weird things that I think about. I was like,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
just feels good. Like you said, this confidence to have this conversation of let's bring it to the forefront. So that was really interesting. And I think the psychedelics itself. So I was curious about it. I've loved Michael Pollan for so long, and then I've read his books. This is Your Mind on Plants and How to Change Your Mind. Did you read
Yep.
those?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. I'm a
yeah,
huge Ballin fan, so yeah, I've been in his works for, I don't know, pretty much, since Omnivore's Dilemma. So
yeah, forever. And then I watched his Netflix thing,
yep, yep.
right? So I was just like, oh my gosh. And so I have a bunch of friends who have done psychedelics. I have never done them. And I often write things in order to find out what I think about it. So my
Mm.
first book was idiomatic Bible translation, which also is a jump to go from Bible translation to psychedelic journey, and I'm aware of that. Like the
How else
twist,
would you do it though, right?
right? It's like what? So also probably why everyone was so surprised because wait,
Right,
you wrote what
right.
now?
Yeah.
But I wrote that because I had questions. And so I'm like, I need to find the answers here. And so I wrote it. So
Mm.
same thing with this is I have questions, and reading some of Holland's stuff and looking at how healing it can be in the right setting was really a beautiful idea to me. What was great is Peggy in this book, and I told her, I'm like, I'm writing this book about psychedelics, and she said, oh, I actually know the two people that started the psychedelic program at, and it's a huge university, but I'm keeping it anonymous. But if you heard it, you would know who it is. Um, she's like, do you want to talk to them? It's like, yes, yes, I do. So I got to sit on this phone conversation with them and just hear what it was like from the
Mm.
beginning of the psychedelics, like being something experimental, to what it is now. So that was very fascinating, but also from the guide's perspective. And they held such a beautiful and holy posture for working within, a non religious space. It was just like an academic science space. Um, but this posture of, I get to walk these people into healing. Like, this is such powerful medicine. And so when I talked to them, I was so moved by their experience. I went back into the book and wrote in Peggy, London, and Tom in a few scenes. Like I was a different story, and then I rewrote those in because again, it was perspective of, oh, these are so like this is a method of healing that we can talk about that nobody's talking about, or at least kind of only talking about a little bit, right? It's like
Right.
not mainstream. And I wanted it to shake people up to go, oh, is that something I could do? I just think we do so much self-medicating when we really need to just be healing. And I think that there's a lot of modalities we've all tried. I've done so much therapy. EMDR was actually very helpful for me. But there are other things I want to try because they scientifically have been shown to like fix the brain chemistry. And I'm like, you know what? Yes, I would love to do that. So I really wanted to bring that conversation to this forefront of, is that possible? And I think in the back, unless we took it out, but I don't think so. I see here I am not remembering again. Oh yeah, in the appendix, like what are psychedelics, psilocybin, is it legal, how it can help with OCD and things, and these studies that show like, no, this is actually helpful and it's plants, right? And so I'm so fascinated that you love that, because some people do read it and sort of see it as like an ancillary thing in the book, but it's a huge part of it. It's about healing and what we can actually do to find true healing versus just sort of making our way through, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed the intentionality of all of the information that you put there at the back of the book to kind of, I saw it as like a gesture of bringing people in if, they're just, unaware of what, is actually being talked about in the contents of the book. And then just also to open people's minds to the
Yeah.
possibility of the healing, that's involved there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it ends and it has big things of internal family systems, which I don't know if you've ever done internal family systems work. I've done a little bit of it, and it's some of the most powerful work I've done. But sometimes it's true. We can't always just get there, and you do need some help. And so a guided sort of trip like this, I think can be beneficial. So I finished the book, and my husband's like, what do you think? And I was like, I think I have to do mushrooms now. Like that's how I came out of it. And he was like, okay. So I've yet to schedule anything, but my like research to figure out, do I want to do this? That's where I landed.
Sure.
Yeah.
You've been talking a lot about the process of the book, and I also love that you said that most about writing is not writing.
Yeah.
Can you tell me? I'm trying to piece together like how long this process took, and then how long was the downtime to where we are now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me think. I wrote my first book in 2019, and then it was published in 2020, and I sort of, I don't know, that was a weird time, right? Because it was COVID.
Right.
And so it was kind of odd. And so I don't think until 2022 I started writing another book. During that time I had some health stuff, so it was kind of sporadic, but what I do recall is that I tried to get like agents to sort of sign on to that book. And that's a very hard process, which I also didn't know that. Does that make sense? Like my first book I put on Kickstarter and we raised all this money, and I didn't realize like the agent world. So when,
and did you have at that point, was it just a concept, or did you actually have like the book fleshed out?
It's actually a whole book, and it's like another jump. It's from the women's point of view, I guess, of Betsy Ross making the first American flag. So we don't know much about her story.
Sure.
And in the end, a man took credit for it. And so it's kind of this idea, instead of a 6-pointed star, they did a 5-pointed star. And it's this kind of idea of like, what if we like sewed and thread intention into the stuff we made? And what would it look like how would a woman have perceived this war and starting a country versus sort of this patriarchal way of looking at it and like starting it on violence? So it was kind of like that. And actually it's done, it's written, and I'm kind of releasing it chapter by chapter on my Substack because it's just fun and I like it. And also I find 4th of July to be tricky. But so anyways, this helps me reframe it.
Yeah.
But when nobody would, like, no agent would pick that up, I was like, I guess I'm done writing for life. Like, I guess I'm just finished. And so there's that. We had a good run. And then I started writing a bunch of things just for me because I was like, well, I'll still write because I love to do it. So that's fine. So this was sort of born out of that in maybe let's see, what year even is it now? 2025. So in 2023 and a half to 2024. And it was in spurts though, because I worked full time. Well, we got let go. The whole company had layoffs and I got let go. And I remember thinking, you have the time. You have to finish this. So that was last summer. And so at that point, I had maybe 2 or 3 chapters, 4 chapters sort of written. So then I sat down and I probably wrote from May until September, just every day as much as I could. And the more I wrote, the more it kind of flowed out of me. So I did that. And then I hired an editor and we worked on it from September until February, like just kind of editing and rewriting. And then I was going to submit it to agents again. She had actually recommended, she's like, I usually don't say this to people, but I love this book. She was like, it's better than some of the bestsellers. I couldn't believe she was saying this. I'm like, do you have the right book? Like, I wrote her back like, are you sure? She's like, but truly, and she used to work in publishing. So I started to put it off to different agents, and I only did maybe a handful, and then they kept coming back no. And I realized, well, what am I I can't let this be like the last time where I just am like, I'm not going to do anything with it. Right. At the same time, my dad had stage 4 cancer and he was getting worse. So I decided to self-publish it so that I could hand it to him on his birthday was the idea. I knew even if an agent was like, I love this, it was going to take, a year, and I didn't know how much long he had left. So the idea was to have it published June 1st because his birthday was June 8th. So I think I decided to do that in March. And then he actually passed away in April. So I didn't get to do that. He knew I was writing a book, but I didn't get to hand it to him. But so I just wrote the editor. I'm like, let's just release it in June and we'll go from there. So, I mean, this is like, it's not like I market it. I don't do stuff. It was literally one day, let's release it. And that was that. Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And you know what? Actually, I say that, I think I said this somewhere, I can't remember. Every time I write, I'm just going to show you that. I put this like 1970s candle. I actually have like 5 or 6 of them. And then I just light it and then it goes down. So when people are like, how long did it take you? And I'm like, it took 12 candles. Like, this is what the candle actually looks like, because you can find it on Amazon and it comes in this package that literally, I don't think this company's changed the package since 1970, but see, it's like white, but then it has all these colors in it. Yeah. So I just stick it in the top, light it, and then when it's done, I stick another one in the top. And then, so I don't know, it took 12 to 20 candles to write it.
What a great way to mark a creative process. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and it's better, it's more conducive to me for encouragement than like words, because sometimes I'll write 2 words in a writing session, but that's still productive. So I don't like being like, I got 700 words. I don't count it, because then I end up adding stuff that I don't need even in there just for a word's sake,
Right. Yeah, I've been there where it's like, okay, I've got how many pages?
Yeah.
And then I Google, how many pages do you need for a nonfiction? Totally. And then I'm like, wait, why am I doing this? Like, what validation am I seeking for here?
Yes, and some of my favorite books are short. I read this one book. I'm always reading weird books. I'm hardly ever reading bestsellers. I'm always like grabbing the weird book in the bookstore. I can't remember what it's called, but it's super tiny, and the entire book takes place out of over 8 hours. And it was one of the most moving and fascinating books I've ever read. And imagine if someone never published it because it didn't fit the word count, So I just try to stay away from things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think form is really, starting to be played with more and more. I mean, like
Yeah.
you see that in like Netflix shows where like one episode's 37 minutes and the next one's an
Yeah.
hour and the next one, it's like it's kind of a gift to everyone. Sometimes the boundaries and the structure are really helpful
Yeah.
to to the creative process.
Yeah.
But then they become standardized, and then everyone's just doing this cookie cutter thing. So I
Yes,
love,
and then it's boring. And then you're like, I don't
yes,
want to do this. Yeah.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's too many expectations there that are just instantly fulfilled.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Tell me about your pen name, B Coil.
Oh yeah. So my actual name is Bonnie Lewis, but because I didn't get to give my dad a book, that's my maiden name is Coil, our last
Mm,
name, and his name was Richard, but he always went by Dick, and so he always signed everything D Coil, like everything. So I
mm,
have so many different cards and stuff, and so when I was time to publish it, I was like, you know what? I think this is such like my first book's under Bonnie Lewis, and I was like, I am a different person then than I'm a different person now than I was then, and I
mhm.
really want to do something to honor my dad, and so I decided it was literally the last minute. She's like, final call for changes. I'm like, can you change everything to Beagle? She's like, sure. So that felt really good, and I love it, and it's like he's with me there, so that's really special for me.
Bonnie, time has been so wonderful. I want everyone to go out and get this book and
Oh, thank
follow
you.
you on your Substack and on Instagram and all of the things. Are you working on anything right now?
I have a few things. I'm releasing that Betsy Ross book just because it's fun.
Oh, that's
Um,
right. Yeah.
yeah, and then I actually have a few ideas for a new book coming, but there's been a lot in writing that's not writing, so I'm just sort of allowing it. I have a few ideas, and they're getting a little bit honed in, but they're not there yet. So we'll see. But
Great.
it'll be sooner rather than later because I love to write. So
Well, that comes through the
yeah.
pages. So thanks so much
Oh,
for
thank
spending
you.
this time with me today and sharing everything about your process and the book and your life. Yeah, I really appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability.
Thank you so much. It's like such a joy to have this conversation with you. You're just a wonderful human. And I really appreciate you reading it and sharing. So I just thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, friends, thank you for listening. Please be sure to check out The Spark of My Womb. There's going to be links in the show notes for Instagram, Substack, and how to get the book. Until next time, be well.